As United States space missions evolved from the exploratory flights of Apollo to the orbital outposts of Skylab and beyond to advanced manned space stations and planetary probes, a new class of problems must be met and answered. Many of them revolve around the unceasing need for food, water, and oxygen, particularly when resupply is impossible or impractical. A regenerative life support system, which recycles oxygen and water, would aid by removing these items from the list of expendables. Such a system was tested in conjunction with NASA in this space station simulator at McDonnell Douglas Astronautics Company in Huntington Beach, California. 40 feet long and 12 feet in diameter, the space station simulator is divided into an equipment compartment, a crew compartment with screened personal hygiene and bunk areas, and an entry airlock. During the test, 4 men lived here without resupply for 90 days, breathing recycled oxygen and consuming water recovered from body wastes. Their hygiene area contained a zero-G urinal and vacuum drying commode, clothes washer and dryer, and auxiliary equipment. The equipment area contained the primary and backup water recovery systems, as well as other life support systems. At the end of this area were a crew data display console, as well as 2 carbon dioxide concentrator systems and other atmospheric control equipment. The 90-day closed-door test had 7 major objectives: to operate the regenerative life support systems for 90 days without resupply, to evaluate advanced life support systems, to determine a crew's ability to operate, maintain, and repair equipment, to reach microbial and chemical equilibrium in a closed environment, to obtain data on physiological and psychological effects of long-duration confinement, to determine the precise role of man in performing in-flight experiments, to obtain material and thermal balances, and determine power requirements. NASA's Office of Advanced Research and Technology funded the test through the Langley Research Center, Hampton, Virginia. June 13, 1970, the test crew enters the simulator. An airlock bridges the simulator's double-walled vacuum barrier and isolates the spacecraft-type internal atmosphere. The crew will live for 3 months in 30% oxygen, 70% nitrogen at 10 psi. Previous tests by McDonnell Douglas and NASA have simulated space missions of 5, 18, 30, and 60 days. The crew for this most ambitious test was selected from 45 volunteer graduate students via a comprehensive physical and psychological process jointly developed by NASA, McDonnell Douglas, the Navy, and various academic institutions. Like the future scientist astronauts they represent, this crew was physically fit, well-versed in an important technology, and well-adjusted, mature individuals able to tolerate the difficulties of prolonged small group confinement. The crew commander was a 25-year-old graduate student in geochemistry from Caltech. Other crew members were a 31-year-old UCLA graduate student in medical physics, a 22-year-old Caltech researcher in biology and neurophysiology, and another Caltech graduate student, 23 years old, specialty aeronautics. 6 TV cameras monitored all parts of the simulator except for the bunks and the personal hygiene areas. The purpose? Safety, plus an opportunity to continuously evaluate crew performance on a non-interference basis. Outside, the chamber was constantly attended by a test conductor, a communications monitor, an engineering monitor, and a physician. The life support system used several advanced subsystems to be evaluated, backed up by previously tested systems, and in some cases, a third, an emergency system. For example, this advanced solid polymer resin carbon dioxide concentrator functioned for 70 days, while a molecular sieve backup system filled out the remaining 20 days. A Sabatier reactor combined hydrogen with the carbon dioxide to produce water, which was electrolyzed to recover breathing oxygen. This advanced isotope-heated vacuum distillation vapor filtration unit, developed by the Air Force, recovered drinking water from urine and perspiration. A backup wick evaporator controlled humidity. Such recycling of body waste water in a long-term test represents one of the major accomplishments of the project. An Apollo-type dispenser controlled the water inventory for precision management. The system was designed to process approximately 3 gallons of water per day, most of the potable water required by the crew. A separate multi-filtration system recycled wash water for both personal hygiene and laundry. Each crewman washed and dried clothes and bedding once a week. Housekeeping tasks such as these were kept to a minimum, just as they must be in space. Food preparation was a daily chore. More than 500 pounds of freeze-dried food made up the major stored consumable in the simulator. When reconstituted with hot water and heated in a microwave oven, the 10 different menus proved to be well accepted by the crew. Entrees such as chicken, steak, and lobster were an important factor in maintaining high morale during the summer-long test. Also varying the diet were occasional snacks and 1 meal of frozen food each week. Each day, a computer displayed a menu, which the crew could accept or reject. Types and quantities of food actually consumed were reported by the crew back to the computer, which kept an inventory on remaining stores, amounts eaten, caloric values, and quantities of water used. Dishwashing was avoided by spraying the disposable eating trays with disinfectant and storing them in sealed boxes. The boxes were retained in the chamber until the end of the test to simulate a realistic solution to a space flight waste management problem. Food scraps and other biodegradable wastes were sealed in cans containing disinfectant. In a closed system like this, such details are vital to maintaining a healthy biotic balance. Approximately 4 hours per day were scheduled for study and recreation. A television set was provided. Recreation also included occasional musicales, although by popular demand, individual practicing was relegated to the sound-insulated equipment area. Fireproof playing cards and games such as chess and Monopoly were provided by NASA's Manned Spacecraft Center. Every day, mental and physical dexterity was monitored to study the effect of extended time under the test conditions using a short-term memory testing device and a complex coordinator developed by Langley Research Center. Physiological conditioning was tested by monitoring metabolic efficiency during exercise. The crew was allowed all the impromptu exercise they desired. However, a mandatory daily workout on the bicycle ergometer provided a continuous evaluation of physical fitness. The crew checked their own physical condition each day through onboard measurements and a consultation via television with the attending physician. 2 of the crew were also subjects for sleep studies, including electroencephalograms and electrooculograms. Once a week, blood samples were taken from each crewman. In all, about 2 liters were drawn from the crew during the 3 months. Each sample was analyzed for a wide variety of constituents. Changes in serum electrolytes, dissolved gases, enzymes, and lipids were evaluated. Quantity and quality of red cells and white cells were recorded and compared. Over 2,000 individual blood tests were performed during the 90 days. Each week, the blood samples, urine samples, water samples, exposed film, and other data were passed out of the chamber. This was the only exception to the otherwise closed system test. The pass-through port permitted transfer of materials without contamination of the cabin atmosphere. The port contained an autoclave, which sterilized it before each use, thereby preventing bacterial contamination from the outside, which could have upset the stable biotic system within. Nothing was passed into the chamber during the 90 days. All expendables were on board at the start of the test, and no resupply was necessary. The crew performed its own maintenance and repair as necessary. Tests such as bacteriological sampling of the recycled water were performed by the crew. Before each tank of water was consumed, samples were cultured on nutrient plates and inspected after 24 hours and again after 48 hours. If any colonies developed, the water would not have been approved for drinking. However, this did not occur. The crew performed their own scheduled equipment maintenance and troubleshooting, thus simulating actual space station operation. This included servicing the water separator and the carbon dioxide concentrators as necessary. To preclude the necessity of passing in spare parts, a computer analysis had been conducted before the test on the problem of spares selection and their effect on completing the 90 days without resupply. A significant scheduled maintenance task involved the vacuum distillation vapor filtration unit. At the end of its design life, the evaporator was replaced. This involved handling the plutonium isotope heaters as well as the evaporator. There were 5 heater elements supplied by the Atomic Energy Commission. The crew replaced the top and bottom isotope heaters according to approved handling methods. In spite of this operation and general proximity to the unit for 90 days, all crewmen completed the test with far less radiation exposure than permitted by the Atomic Energy Commission, or approximately the same amount allowed for the general population. Other crew tasks involved collecting data from the various sensors and recording all significant operating parameters. This information was transmitted to the central data storage and processing facility from a computer keyboard terminal located at the crew data display console. Computer readouts appeared on a television display visible to the crew. Even dedicated spacemen look forward to Bust-Out Day, a day for celebration and well-earned congratulations. Inside the simulator, one of the crewmen filmed the final moments of the most ambitious regenerative life support system trial to date. September 11th, 1970. The crew are honored by a welcoming committee of dignitaries. The most famous, Neil Armstrong, first man to set foot on the moon. The time, 6 a.m. 91 days ago, the test crew had entered this same doorway. A summer had passed while they breathed recycled air, drank recycled water, and validated equipment and procedures that could well become routine in future space activities. Following a brief medical examination, a hot shower, and a real non-freeze-dried breakfast, the crew meets the press. Neil Armstrong sums up the accomplishment this way.
Probably a more important result from this kind of testing may not have to do with spaceflight at all, but rather be applicable to a general understanding of man and his environment. For actually, what we have in the next room is a miniature Earth and a miniature population and a very close study of the interrelationship between those groups. The understanding of these basic interactions between man and his environment may hold the necessary key to man on the spaceship Earth, understanding the relationship between himself and his environment.